When I thought about the Poiki chefs, I thought about this. I thought about the fact that I'm guessing that many, especially the older ones, have done compulsory military service. Is that right? Raise your hand if you've done compulsory. Yeah, all over here, lots of old fellas. And a few more, yep. And how about, but doesn't Singapore also, yeah, anyone else done compulsory? Anyone else from another country done compulsory military service? Were you all hiding or what? No? But I know there would have been some of you too scared to raise your hand. I'm not going to make fun of you or point you out or anything, but I ask this because when we start this text, it's a very short text today. As we go through it, you're going to see it's just like a general commanding their troops just before they go out to battle. Listen to the words. It says this. It's just short, fire up. Just you can see this being said by someone in command. Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. I love that. Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. Our text is 1 Corinthians 16, verse 13 and 14. This is Father's Day, happy Father's Day, and we are going to be really doing, it's quite a masculine message. Apologies to anyone who doesn't like masculine messages, but it's something that I think is appropriate for today. Now, let me just start you off with a bit of laying the scene. This is written to the Corinthian church. The Corinthian church are a weak and worldly church. They are a weak and worldly church. So when Paul writes to them, the letter, most of his letter, most of those 16 chapters, is trying to sort out the problems that they've got into and the things they're up to because they're weak and worldly Christians. He begins with talking about the church being split into factions. Each one had their favorite preacher, and they would argue about who's the best preacher, and follow this and follow that, and so this person. And so it was a mess. It was divided. It was a church divided, which the church is supposed to be in unity. There were church members involved in sexual immorality. Not good, really bad, not good. There were marriage problems that weren't being dealt with, not being sorted out, needed to be, and weren't. There were controversies about eating food offered to idols and why were they involved in this and what was going on. Their worship was undermined because they were coming and they were all about themselves and selfish. And so that Paul had to write to them and say, hey, cut that out and start living this way. And then finally, there was false teaching about the resurrection of the body. Such an important doctrine. And yet they had it messed up and there was all sorts of issues. So there are 15 chapters of Paul just sorting out problem after problem after problem. And I haven't gone into all the details. Lots of different issues. And then he comes near to the end and he fires off this volley of commands, this volley of orders to the church. He is trying to put some steel into their backbones. You are weak. You are worldly. So I'm telling you now, you've got to change. And he fires this off right at the end. And here it is. I'm going to put it up. So, it's already up. Okay. Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. And then he concludes with, do everything in love. Now, all these verbs are what we call present imperatives. They are commands. And because they're present imperatives, they're commands that you don't just do once, but you keep on doing them, and you keep on doing them. In the present, they're just on and on. So this is something he's saying, for the rest of your lives, you weak and worldly people, do this. And he gives them 5 orders, 5 instructions, 5 directives that they must do for the rest of their lives. This isn't just for men, this is for women as well, but because it's Father's Day, this is written to the whole church. Because it's Father's Day, I'm going to focus on men and do most of the applications for men. So you're welcome, guys. You're going to be picked on all morning. And because you're males, I can be a little more aggressive in your face. Maybe. I don't know. But these 5 directives come down to 3 powerful points. I've put them together because they say very similar things, a couple of the words each. Men of Northcross, here it is this morning. Stand firm. Be strong. Do everything in love. Stand firm. Be strong, do everything in love, because we are not going to be weak and worldly. We are not going to stay there. We want to go forward. We don't want to be those guys that let the church down, our families down, or whoever else down. So the first one is stand firm. Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be on your guard spiritually. Be determined to be awake, stay awake, be vigilant, onto it. When it comes to spiritual things, be awake. Don't fall asleep. Don't let things go past. Don't let things beat you. When I used to go to the beaches, we'd take our kids to the beach, we'd turn up somewhere, and sometimes the waves were up, it was stormy. I have a little background in surf lifesaving. So when we'd get there, I was totally alert. We'd have 3 kids on the beach, just going towards the water, playing around, I was on high alert because I didn't want anything to happen to my children at all. And I tried, as a Christian father, to be on the alert all the time for spiritual and moral issues coming up in their lives. Always trying to make sure I was on high alert so I could keep them spiritually and morally safe. So gents, if we're going to be good Christians, if we're going to be good husbands, if we're going to be good fathers, and whatever else you want to do and the relationships you have, we need to guard against the corrosive influence of the world around us. That's what's being said here. Our society it has all sorts of stories to tell, and we've got to maintain our Christian identity and strength in our lives and help also the ones we love. Now, last week we had that amazing international speaker, wasn't she? She was just incredible, Elisa Childers. And she talked about the lies Christians believe. There are so many. You talk to different Christians in different walks of life and different churches, and you'll find, I'm sure in this church, that there are some lies that we have believed. There are some things that we've adopted and have become ingrained in our lives. And she pointed these out, some of them, and they're unbiblical cultural lies. And they're basically, they take your eyes off Christ and they put them on yourself. And the ones she talked about in particular were the ones that stopped you relying on Jesus and saying, I can do this, I can do it. There's quite a few lies out there that tell people we can, and us as Christians when we adopt them, that we can live in our own strength. I've got it within me. But those sorts of teachings, you'll find as a Christian, you'll eventually become discouraged, you'll become disheartened because they don't actually work. When you're a Christian, we're supposed to be relying on Christ. And so people are being deceived. They're not being watchful. They're not being alert to spiritual things that are not true. Spiritual things that can infiltrate our lives, negatively influence us so that we actually are further from Christ than getting closer to Him. So what the Bible's saying is if we want to avoid being dragged into this and believing the lies, we've got to be on high alert. There's a Christian writer I read recently, and he said this. He said, Christian men, far too many, have become far too pleased with the things of this world. We have got it pretty good, most of us on the North Shore. Most of us have a lot of things that are really, and a lot of us have become quite pleased, too pleased with many of the things of this world. He goes on to argue this. Men are fooling about with homes and holidays, careers and cars, exercise and entertainment, forgetting that God has called us to so much more. That's huge. That's challenging. Now listen, there is nothing wrong with any of these things in themselves. I enjoy all of those things. So I'm not at all, and he's not at all saying, right, you've got to stop doing any of these things and stop, finding any joy in any of these. But what he is telling us is far too many Christians are so fooling around with these things that they've become our idols. They become the things that make us happy. Church, we endure. Christian life, we endure, we do our devotion because we feel we have to. We're not that close to God. What we're really keen on is when I talk to you about your car, you'll talk to me all day. And he's saying that we have become quite obsessed with these things. They've become our idols. They've become more important to us than the really important things that we should also have incorporated in our lives. If any of those things up there bring you more joy than Jesus Christ, it's time to ask yourself, have I let down my guard? Have I failed to be alert? Have I let this come into my life in a way that it shouldn't be? You know what I learned this week as I was studying this? That watchfulness was one of the spiritual practices, one of the spiritual disciplines of the Puritans. What they realized is that watchfulness is so important to a person's growth, to their spiritual life, to their spiritual progress, and just their spiritual health in general, that if they're not watching, they can be eaten away spiritually, and it's a real problem. So they made it one of the spiritual disciplines alongside Bible study, alongside prayer, alongside lots of other things, spiritual watchfulness. Men, we have to be spiritually aware of what we're being influenced by, and not just be drawn into things that God doesn't want us to be. It's a practice we should have, a daily practice. Am I letting things into my life that I shouldn't? Do not go to sleep at the wheel. I had a friend that did that. This has just come to my head. He was driving down, the steep Waiwera Hill, fell asleep on the way down. Went through the window, shot miles. Fortunately, he was a top New Zealand gymnast. He doesn't even know anything because they found him on the side of the road hours later, just completely gone. But he fell all the right way, apparently, and I met him later. He was just carved up in all sorts of ways going through the windscreen. Older cars those days, windscreens weren't as kind to you. Don't fall asleep at the wheel, because those corrosive influences will get in your life. Remember this text here is very important. I've mentioned it twice lately. 1 Peter, and he talks about this. He says, be alert, just what we're talking about, and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, and all his minions, probably millions of them, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Don't think, I hear that terminology, I think, oh, he's going to attack me and so on. No, he's trying to deceive you, pull down your defenses, make you believe lies. He's the father of lies. He's trying to do all sorts of things to say, hey, you're doing, take you off guard, make you cool down as a Christian, all these things. And we mustn't, because he goes on to say, resist him, standing firm in the faith. That's the same terminology as our text. Peter's readers are to be alert and stand firm in the faith. Paul's readers are to be alert and stand firm in the faith. You think it's pretty important if each writer is repeating it, very similar things in different places. In other words, men in particular, because that's who we're talking to in particular, hold your stance. Don't get pushed back. Stand firm. Toughen up. We have to stand firm. Don't be a wuss. Don't be weak. Don't be worldly. He's calling to us. Don't yield to the things that, when the challenges of life come, stand up to them. We mustn't surrender and run away. We mustn't be afraid to face opposition. We must battle worldly values. Battle against false belief, battle against sin. And what we're talking about here is a holy, stubborn refusal to be pushed back or to join in or to let anyone influence you to become what God doesn't want you to become. Man up. I'm going to use that terminology. That's what it's saying here. And one of the passages that comes to my mind, this passage has rescued me multiple times growing up as a Christian. I got saved at 22. I'd come out of a pretty promiscuous life and all that sort of thing, came through. And these sets of verses have saved me multiple times and fortified me multiple times through the years. So I'm going to share them with you today. We have to go back to the book of Genesis, and we're going to have a look at there. But I keep this in the back of my mind, and it pushes me to resist whatever's coming my way. Now, I'll set the scene. Jacob, the father of 12 sons, the patriarch of Israel. His 12 sons became the 12 tribes of Israel. So Jacob's this father of these sons. And before he dies, he speaks to each of them and gives them each one a blessing. Now, they're not normal blessings like if I said to you, I'll bless you. Each one is a prophetic statement. In other words, God is behind each one of these statements. Each one of these things came true. And so what did he say to each one? Well, first up was his eldest son, Reuben. And by the way, I'm the oldest son in my family. So up comes Reuben, come here. I want to bless you before I go. Now, by this time, he was way old. And he comes forward. Now, the eldest son in that culture always enjoyed special privileges. The eldest son got this massive blessing. You know, Jacob stole his brother's, Esau's blessings by tricking him. So the blessings that the older brother got were sought by everyone. Everyone wished they could have them, but the older brother got them. This is what he says to Reuben. He says to Reuben, his eldest son, a mature man by this stage with his own family, he says to them, Reuben, you are my firstborn. Now, that's a big statement. That means lots of things in that culture. You're my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling at power. He said, you have got all these things because you are my firstborn. Now, what does he say? Turbulent as waters, or unruly as a flood, or the terminology I used for years in my head, unstable as water. So, unstable as water, you will no longer excel. For you went up onto your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it. He committed immorality with one of his father's concubines. Long story I won't go into. But Reuben did not stand firm. He had everything going for him, physically and in the family and all going. But he did not control himself. He did not stand firm in the faith. He acted immorally and he lost his mana and he never got it back. This is God in control here, by the way. This is prophetic. God is saying, you blew it, pal. And now the rest of your life is going to be tinged by the decisions you made that were wrong. You are weak. You are unstable as water. You've got no backbone. You didn't stand firm in the faith. You sinned. You've hurt yourself. You hurt your family. You've hurt your future. You imagine me reading this as a young Christian, probably only 2 or 3 years into Christianity. I sat there and went, I never want to be Reuben. And so my prayer for years was I'd get up and I'd pray, today, Lord, don't let me be Reuben. Because of my background, there were temptations, and I did not want to be Reuben, and I refused to be Reuben. May you stand firm in the faith. Men of Northcross, stand firm. Stand firm, and then our second point is be strong. Come on, be strong. Or we might say, man up. Come on. Here we go. Have a look. Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. Be courageous. Be strong. Now that word courageous, I looked at it and then I started to think about it. And the word actually, strictly translated, is act like men. That's why I chose the title of this message. Comes from this word in the Greek. Act like men. Now, it was no slight on women because it was written to the whole church. But in those days, bravery, boldness, strength, courage, that's what you expected of a man. Get out there, toughen up, man up. And he says this to the whole church. Everyone knew what he meant. You might think of it in your own head like this. Don't cower like a kid. Act like a man. Don't fall apart when things go wrong. Act like a man. That's what is being said here. Following Jesus is not for cowards. We swim against the stream so often in our lives. Many times in my life, I go to some occasion. G'day, how are you? Good. I'm Jack. I'm an accountant. What do you do? I'm a pastor. It's not always taken nicely and not always goes that nicely. In life, we have to be courageous. We have to be strong. When life seems difficult, when we face seemingly insurmountable, should I say, challenges, when our lives seem to be coming apart, man up. Don't wimp out. That's what this is saying. Act like a man. these instructions are probably or possibly, this combination of words here, probably has a background in Joshua. And many of you will be familiar with Joshua's statement, or God's statement to Joshua. Remember, Joshua's a younger man. Moses is about to die. He's not allowed into the promised land. So now Joshua has to take 2 to 3 million people, lead them into the land, and lead them into battle so they can fight the inhabitants that are enemies of God, that hate Israel, win that battle so they can settle in the land God has promised them. So he steps up. But before they go in, this is what God says to him. Now notice, he doesn't say it once, doesn't say it twice, he says it 3 times and repeats it many times through Joshua's life. So I got the feeling that Joshua was scared to death about his new job. Thought, I can't handle this. And God said to him, be strong and courageous. God talking directly to him, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. It's not saying here, because you're enough. Be strong and courageous because you're enough, or one of the other lies. It doesn't say anything like that. It says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For, why? For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Doesn't say rely on yourself. Doesn't say dig deep, man. That's because you got to do this on your own. It says, because if you obey me, if you follow my word, if you live the way I'm asking you to, then I will bless you in what you do. Doesn't mean it always goes well, everybody. Doesn't mean it's easy, but God says, I will help you. I will be with you, and you will win. Sometimes in life we face all sorts of challenges and problems, but God will build our character, build our strength, make us stronger, and He will always be with us as we go through if we rely on Him. Men of Northcross, don't give in to fear. Don't fall apart. Don't compromise. Don't be afraid, especially in the area of witness. So many men, Christian men, have been silenced because they're afraid that, how will people react if I share my faith? How will people think of me? Or what will they think of me if I share my faith? Be courageous. Be strong. Have a look at this text. Paul's writing to Timothy. Now, Timothy was timid. Timothy had some issues. You know what his challenge was? He didn't want to witness, and I kind of don't blame him. You say, why? I said, because back then, when you witness, sometimes you were beaten, sometimes you were arrested, and sometimes you were killed, sometimes all sorts of things took place. So there was a lot at stake. Paul writes to him and says this, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid. So if we're timid about sharing our faith, if we're timid facing the challenges of life, if we're weak and worldly, that's not on God. That's because the Spirit of God is not fully developing and working in our lives, because we are not relying on Him. He gives us power, love, and we'll come back to that later, and self-discipline. So do not be ashamed of the testimony about our Lord or of me, His prisoner. Rather, join me in suffering for the gospel by the power of God. Timothy was afraid to share his faith because he thought he would suffer. And he may well have done. The Bible never promises we won't suffer. In fact, it says if you live a godly life, you will suffer because people are going to react against you and the godly way you live. So he had to face up. And Paul says to him, you need to realize God has the power. God will be with you. God will empower you. The Spirit of God has been given to us, guys, to empower us. The question is, are we daily relying on Him? When we face situations at work where we get an opportunity to open up and say something about faith, do we clam up, or do we rely on the power of God and the wisdom of God to say the right things at the right time to bring people to Christ? I have failed. Even though I've studied these things for years, there have been times where I've gone home And if I could kick myself hard enough, just kick myself for not really taking opportunities and stuff. Or just, like seizing up because, I don't know what everyone will think. No. Charles Spurgeon, one of the greatest preachers, he just puts he puts everyone to shame. He was just outstanding. I don't know, God just blessed him with such an amazing gift. But he wrote this, he said this originally, probably more than once, but he said this: is not timidity, is not being afraid of, living the Christian life and sharing the Christian faith, a common vice, a common sin, a common problem among Christian workers? Is it not a sin to educate God's people into habits which are unfit for Christian warfare? Come every week to church and we just, it's all right. He says, isn't that a sin? Are not there such times as to demand a more manly bearing from believers than most of them exhibit? Aren't there times where you just get up and say, come on, guys, man up? You see, that's what he's trying to say there. He was saying it because so many people, there were so many opportunities in England at that time, and so many guys were just hiding in their caves, leaving it to everyone else. So let's man up. I include myself. We need to man up too when temptation beckons. Now, this guy did his own survey. He owned some sort of publication, and he put out through there, and he asked the guys that read his publication. Now, this is a men's sort of thing, and they had to answer the survey. They didn't have to. They answered. And this is what he found. The survey found that 64%, imagine that number for a while, 64% is a majority. It's a lot, isn't it? 64% of Christian men view pornography at least once a month. Now, I don't know how he defined Christian. I would hope and pray it's not true in this church. Boy, I hope. Watching porn once a month? Nah. At least. He went on and he asked a question. What is the number one sin you would like to put to death in your life as a Christian man? These guys probably heard about this, hurt about this going on in their lives. And the answer to that question was 60% of the under 45s, so 45 and under, answered the thing that they would most like to get out of their lives, the thing that drove them mad, was sexual sin. Is that you? Be courageous. Beat your addiction. Beat your addiction. Man up and beat it. Don't let it beat you. More than a few men have told me over the years, and I could, that pornography is the thing that holds them back in their faith. That they would really love to do more in church, but they feel guilty. That they really want to get close to their wives, but it messes them up. That they really wish they were different, and it just plagues their mind and comes into it while they're at work or whatever, whenever they rest or whatever. It's a guilty secret that haunts them. And sometimes those negative feelings just drain and hurt every single part of their lives. Is that you? Then what have we learned today? Man up. Cry out to God. He wants to help you. He wants to take you forward. He wants you to win. He doesn't want the devil to devour you. He wants you to push back on the devil, and he wants you to have victory in your life. Now, you may need to recruit other people to get help. You may need a counselor. You may need an accountability partner. You may need a prayer partner. Find someone you trust, but whatever you do, don't leave today and just say, I'm going to go back to it. I can't help myself. That's what I hear a lot. I can't help myself. Yes, you can. Not in your own strength, but relying on God, and with the help of others perhaps, you can win and you can beat this. Let's man up. Let's be courageous. Let's be strong. Let's draw a line in the sand and say, today is the last day. I'm burying this. I'm putting it to death. And tomorrow, I will not look again, or any day after. I like what this guy wrote. His name's Greg Morse. He wrote, strong men, strong in faith, strong in the Lord, stand firm and dare to defy the world, the flesh, and the devil. And my question is, are you one of those guys today? Am I going to be one of those guys today with whatever I'm fighting with? Because that's not, hey, everyone, if that's your issue, remember, that's not the only issue. There are lots of other issues that we battle in our lives, bad temper and all sorts of things. But we all need to stand up and recognize Satan's influence in our lives. No weak and worldly for us. Stand firm, be strong. Finally, do everything in love. You know what you should do? That is a whole verse. Do everything in love is verse 14. Memorize it today, 1 Corinthians 16:14, and say, I memorized the verse at church today, and go home and proudly tell everybody, whole verse that I memorized. Well done. You know, it's an easy verse to memorize, but boy, is it hard to live. When we get annoyed, when we get in situations that bother us, where's the love? Is there love for those around you? Is there love for your wife? Is there love for your kids? Where's the love? Whatever situation, we're all in different situations. Think of a speech like that. I thought about it and thought, you just see this general doing this thing, be strong, stand firm in the face, courageous, and blah, blah. And then he goes, and do everything in love. I can see Rowan Atkins doing that sort of, It's not exactly, what? I was thinking, I'm just about to go shoot everybody. What? Do everything in love? Yeah, because you see, we can go out this door all pumped up, guys, and go, and everywhere, that's not what it's supposed to do. It's the power of love. It's the thing that destroys darkness so often. So we take all these things, we're strong internally and loving as we go about. That's what we're doing. We're not some big egghead that walks around thinking he's the toughest thing since whatever. We go out and we love and we care. We're fired up to go out there. It was a lack of love that was destroying the Corinthian church. Love, without love, all this falls and collapses. We're just a bunch of grumpy old men or young men. If we lack love, then Satan has had an influence on our lives. Because God, remember we read earlier, God gives us power to live and love. If the Spirit is working in our lives, as I hope He is, He will be producing His fruit, which is love. Do everything in love. It's another imperative. It's the fifth and final imperative. The fifth and final battle instruction before we go out today. Manly men love. I remember sitting, I'm going to share this with you. I shared it with someone this week. I was sitting in the lounge with someone. He just punched his wife. And I'm sitting opposite him. I'm a bit smaller than him, like most people. And I'm sitting opposite him, and he's in a real angry mood. And I've been trying to console her, and he's walked in. And he says to me, I started off, I just said, hey, mate, you don't punch women. I said, real men don't punch women. So you know what he said to me? Real men punch men. So he jumped up, he came across, he pulled back, and I just said, hit me, and I'm going to call the cops. And you're going, you're in so much trouble, dude. And he pulled back, someone stood up to him. Who knows if it hit me what I would have done, I don't know to this day. Real men don't hit women. Real men are strong internally. Real men love. That guy wasn't a real man, and I told him so, and he didn't like it. But real men lay down their lives for others. Real men love their wives. Real men love their children. Real men give to other people. Real men care about other people. Real men sacrifice themselves, and they win war medals for it. They don't win war medals for being selfish. They win war medals for rescuing and saving others. Man up. Love, sacrificing, caring for others, that is manly. Being a selfish, self-centered wally is not. Jesus is always, always, always Our example. He lived on this world. They treated him like dirt. We treated him like dirt. Yet he responded in love. When they killed him, when they tortured him, and all that was going on, he prayed for them. And then he died for them. He sacrificed himself so that we might have life. We might live forever. And he rose from the dead. And he left his word for us that we might love others and be like Jesus. You want to be like Jesus? Love. Be strong. Do all the things. Unselfishly love other people. I want to finish my final text that I'm going to put up with the text that Paul wrote 3 chapters earlier, if you like. He's told them that they've got to love, but everyone, what is it? Well, you don't have to wonder what he meant. 3 chapters back is 1 Corinthians 13, and he described what love is. Guys, every one of us needs to memorize this as your next verse. Love is patient. Are you patient? Love is kind. It does not envy. You're not looking at others. You go, good on them. I'm glad for you. Not, ugh. It does not boast. It is not proud. We're not about ourselves. Does not dishonor others. You're not snide talking behind their backs. I'm not either, hopefully. It's not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. You're not always reminding your children or your wife or whoever about their faults and failures because you leave them behind. You're too big to hold on to things. You let it go. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects. It always protects, guys. It does not assault others. It does not hurt others, not verbally or physically. Always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. We go back to the beginning. And I told you that the Holy Spirit will help us. Paul wrote about that. For the Spirit of God, the Spirit that God gave us, does not make us timid, but gives us the power. Gives us power, love, and self-discipline to do as he's asked. So, stand firm. Man up to everything in love. These are far more important than how much you can bench press. God doesn't care how much you can bench press. He really cares about whether these 3, in fact the whole 5, are part of our lives. Stand firm, be strong, do everything in love. The God who gave you those orders will give you the power to do it. Do you believe that? Because that's called Christian faith, and that is basic to who we are. If you can't believe that, then where's your trust? Where's my trust? Let's trust God that he can enable us to live this way and be the men God wanted us to be. And, of course, the women God wanted us to be.